Good to see y'all. I heard this is a place I might find some American-loving, God-fearing, Bible-clinging patriots. Am I in the right place? People that understand that our gifts, our rights, our unalienable rights aren't a grant from the government, but they're given by God Himself. You know, the glory of the American Revolution wasn't that we had a new government, it was that we had a free people. And it is so important that when times like this, the next couple months, I cannot tell you how critical it is when we see these freedoms, these liberties. You know, Ronald Reagan said they don't automatically go to the next generation. We have to stand up for them. We have to fight for them with every single generation. And so thank you for being here to do that. Thank you for what you're doing in your communities, in your clubs, in your churches, in your groups, everywhere you go. Doing what you can to make sure that the freedoms and liberties that we share do indeed get passed to the next generation. Thank you. You know, I had the opportunity last week to be at the White House when the president gave his acceptance speech. And man, what an amazing contrast, huh? Compared to the never-ending DNC Zoom call. The Zoom call that would not end. No. You know, and the visions are so different. So different. A vision that wants you to cower in shame about our history. A vision that wants you to be ashamed to be an American. A vision that has no hope for the future. Versus a vision that understands that while we are always and continuing to work toward that more perfect union, the principles this nation were founded on have done more to provide more freedom, more prosperity, more opportunity for more people in this nation and around the world than any other force. Amen. You know, and so we do not need to cower. We can continue to work. We can continue to improve. But we can stand here bold and proud to be an American today. And we can be excited about a platform and principles that work toward equal opportunity for all people. You know, when somebody gets up there and they've had policies that have kept people in generational cycles of poverty forever, versus policies that lift people up, that give them a dream, a hope, a future, things to go after. This is what we're talking about when it comes to this. And let me tell you something. It was awesome to stand there, to sit there on the South Lawn and to hear the president talk about all that's been done. And, you know, we have an interesting thing about the president. Of course, he is a unique individual. One of the big unique things is that he's somebody who ran for office and actually did what he said he was going to do. That's kind of odd. And let me tell you, after being a couple years in Washington, you don't see that too often. People willing to do what they said they were going to do. People who care more about what you think, the American people, than the Washington elite, the elect, the hobnobbing and wine sipping people, leaders around the world. They care about making lives better for the American people. And so we have a president that does that. Some of y'all saw the craziness that went on as people were leaving the speech, and you know how heartbreaking to be in a country that espouses freedom of speech. But then we have a side that says we espouse freedom of speech as long as you agree with us. That's not freedom of speech, is it? You know, my son was there. Let me introduce my family. There's my wife, Roselle, over here. And we have Ian and Zoe and Kent. And so Kent got to go with me. 10-year-old son got to go with me to the speech. And so we were there. And we hung out a little bit after. But we were supposed to go out the east side, just like Rand was and everybody else. But we hung out a little bit after. We were just showing around the White House and everything, the lawn. And so by then they knew to send us out a different door, and so we went out the west side, and you know, but it was sad when the Secret Service had to look at us and say, you know, your son, for his own safety, might want to take off his red hat. You know, when you can't walk the streets of the United States of America, in our nation's capital, without fear of being hurt physically because of a political stance, this is not the America that this nation was founded upon. And what's been sad to see is how the left has completely embraced lawlessness as a means to advance a political agenda. This is not the Democratic Party from yesteryear, where we had a genuine agreement on what we wanted to see happen in our nation. You know, maybe it's some differences on how to get there, but we believed, we loved America, we understood the principles and that this nation were founded on, provided an amazing opportunity for us, provided freedoms that the world hasn't seen, provided prosperity for people that has never been experienced in all of human history. But some people think that that's a bad thing. I don't get it. I don't get it. And let me tell you, as I sat there in the basement across the table from Adam Schiff and saw him come up with lie after lie after lie after lie. Before that, we had the IRS targeting conservative groups. You know, and what we see now with the lawlessness spilling over into the streets and being coddled by the left instead of corrected. We've got to stand up to that. We have got to stand up to that. We can't let lawlessness be embraced. My one encouragement is this, is that the stuff that we're seeing in our streets now has been going on under the surface level for years. The Marxist agenda being advanced by lawlessness. We've seen it in all the ways I just mentioned, but we have got to stand up for it. That's what this season is about. And I can tell you, I am thankful that we have a fighter in the White House to do that. Someone who came into office and put a quick end to ISIS. Before we heard talks about red lines, kept moving. We found out it was a dotted line. We kind of brushed it out a little bit. Wasn't a line at all, was it? Instead of sending pallets of cash to Iran, we sent bombs to take out Soleimani. Instead of starting wars, we're ending them quickly. And we're doing what's right for the American people. And we're willing to stand up to communist China. We're willing to get jobs back in America. This is the kind of leadership that we need to see out of Washington and the kind of leadership we have been seeing. We all know the president's a fighter, but let me tell you another side of him that doesn't get out much because the media doesn't let it get out much. But I've had the opportunity to meet with him, to be in the Oval Office, to sit across from the cabinet table, and hear his heart. He takes the responsibility very seriously. He's sober to the task and what matters, and he's fighting for you, and he cares about the American people. You know, I talk a lot of times about the story that you've never heard, because in any other administration, any other president, this would have been the feel-good story of the month. You would all know it. But the Louisiana Little League team won the World Series. And so they went to the Oval Office, and they're hanging out with the president, and they're all excited. Visiting as championship teams do. And the president was just like, hey, where are you from? They're like, we're from Louisiana. He's like, really? You're from Louisiana? He's like, I happen to have an event in Louisiana tonight. Y'all want to ride? Sure. He piled them on all on Air Force One. They took off to Louisiana. Calling parents on the way home. We're going to be at a different airport than we thought we were. We're riding home. We're not going to be in United or Delta. We're on Air Force One. But he has a genuine heart for the American people. And you got to know, just over the next couple months, you're going to see lie after lie after lie after lie after lie. You're going to see things blown out of proportion, distortions taken account. But we understand what makes America work. And it's not the government. We do our job and we provide the environment, but it's you. We the people of the United States of America. That's what makes America work. And so we know we're going to have a clearer choice than ever. But let me help you out here. Here's one of the scriptures I love. It's in Ecclesiastes. I think it's Ecclesiastes 10:2. As you go to the polls, remember this scripture. It says, the heart of the wise inclines to the right, but the fool to the left. Amen. I can't make it any more clear, the choice that we have today. When my wife and I were praying a couple years ago about whether to jump in a campaign or not and to take on this grand adventure, the scripture that came to us was Joshua 1. And God's talking to Joshua and he says, be strong and courageous. And then a few scriptures later he says, be strong and courageous. And then you get to about verse 9 and he says, haven't I commanded you to be strong and courageous? That was a sign for us to jump in the fray. But it's a sign for all of us right now. This is a time for courage. This is not a time to cower. This is a time to stand up and to be bold and know that they're going to intimidate you. The mob's going to come after you. They're going to do everything they can to stop you, but they will not be able to silence the voice of the American people. It's time for the silent majority to not be silent. And we have a choice, of course. USA, yeah!
USA! 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 USA!
And so this November we have a clear choice, someone who's working to drain the swamp or someone who spent almost 50 years building it. And I know that you know what you're going to do. Let's get our friends and neighbors out, make sure they know what to do, get them registered to vote, do everything you can to make it happen. But I want to remind you with this, and it's our Star Spangled Banner. It ends with a question. It says, "Oh, say, can you see the Star Spangled Banner? Does it still wave? Does it still wave?" That's the question. Does it still wave? But then it asks another, over the land of the free and the home of the brave. We have to remember that we have our freedoms because we're brave. And if we don't be brave, we will lose our freedoms. And so let's make sure that we do our part to be brave, to stand up, to be bold, and to speak out, and do everything we need to do to make sure that the principles this nation were founded on succeed into another generation. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for turning out. God bless you. God bless America.